The key turned easier than it should have. That was Caleb's first warning. He'd cut his Kansas City business trip short by a day, eager to surprise Mara and little Oliver. The house felt different the moment he stepped inside. Warmer, with unfamiliar cologne lingering in the air, something expensive, masculine, definitely not his aftershave. "Daddy! Daddy!" Oliver's voice erupted from the living room. His 3-year-old son came running, blonde hair bouncing, clutching something in his tiny fist. "Look what I found." Caleb knelt down, smiling despite the unease crawling up his spine. "What have you got there, buddy?" Oliver opened his palm. 7 colorful latex rings scattered across Caleb's hand. Purple, blue, red, yellow. His breath caught immediately. His throat began to tighten, the familiar warning signs of his severe allergy kicking in. "Where did you find these?" Caleb fought to keep his voice steady while his airways started constricting. "In Mommy's room, under the big bed. The scary friend left them there." Caleb's vision blurred slightly. Severe latex allergy, anaphylactic reaction territory. He'd made sure Mara knew when they first started dating. No latex anything in their house. Ever. It wasn't just preference. It was life or death. "Oliver, go wash your hands right now, okay? Use lots of soap and hot water. Scrub really good." His son skipped toward the bathroom, humming happily. Caleb pocketed the rings and headed upstairs, each step heavier than the last. His hands were already starting to tingle from brief contact. The master bedroom door stood ajar. Inside, everything looked normal except for 2 wine glasses on Mara's nightstand. Red wine stains on both rims, the expensive bottle. He checked the attached bathroom. A damp towel hung crooked on the rack. Mara always folded them perfectly. In the wastebasket, tissues with unfamiliar perfume, receipts from restaurants he'd never been to, and something that made his stomach drop. Wrapper from protection. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, deliberate. Not Mara's usual quick patter. Caleb quickly closed the bathroom door and pretended to check his reflection in the mirror. Through the thin walls, he heard whispered voices, then a back door closing quietly. "Caleb?" Mara's voice carried false surprise, pitched too high. "You're home early." She appeared in the doorway, wearing a silk robe he'd never seen before. Black, expensive, with lace trim that screamed someone else's taste. Her hair was slightly messed, lipstick smudged, and she was breathing harder than she should be from just walking upstairs. "Flight got moved up," he said, studying her face in the mirror. "Thought I'd surprise you." "That's wonderful." But her eyes darted to the nightstand, then to the window, then back to him. Classic signs of deception. He'd learned to read people in his logistics job. "I was just taking a nap. Long day at school. Parent conferences ran late. Where's Oliver been while you were napping?" "Playing in his room mostly. You know how he is with his toys?" She moved closer, trying to position herself between him and the bed. "How is Kansas City? You finished the warehouse assessment?" Standard deflection technique. Answer questions with questions. Caleb nodded, noting how she avoided mentioning the scary friend Oliver had referenced. "I'm going to shower off the travel smell. That airplane air always makes me feel grimy." "Good idea. I'll start dinner. Maybe order pizza. I'm too tired to cook." Too tired from what exactly? That night after Mara fell asleep, or pretended to, Caleb lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her breathing was off, shallow like someone pretending to sleep. Once he was sure she was truly out, he slipped from bed and headed to the basement. His workshop held more than just tools. Years in logistics had taught him the value of surveillance, skills companies paid him well for. Now, he'd use them at home. In 2 hours, he'd planted microcameras in 5 key spots: kitchen, living room, master bedroom, Oliver's playroom, and the main hallway. All fed into a cloud server his coworker Nate had helped him set up months ago, what they'd called a home security project. Turned out, it was more than that. The baby monitor in Oliver's room had backup recording he'd forgotten about. Caleb pulled up the past week's audio and scrubbed through it until he heard something that stopped him cold. Tuesday night, 9:47 p.m. Mara's whispered voice. "He's gone until Thursday. You can come through the back door. Park on the street behind us." A man's voice, deep and confident. "I've been thinking about you all day. Can't wait to feel you again, to taste you." Mara's laugh, breathless and hungry. "Oliver's asleep. We have all night. I told him you were my personal trainer." The man. "This setup won't last forever. He's going to figure it out eventually. Guys like him always do." Mara. "Caleb's predictable. He trusts me completely. Besides, even if he suspected something, he'd never have the spine to do anything about it. He avoids confrontation like it's contagious." Sound of kissing, then movement. The man. What if he comes home early? Mara. He never deviates from his schedule, ever. It's like he's programmed. Besides, I've got him convinced I'm the perfect wife and mother. He'd never believe I could do this to him. Caleb saved the file and stared at the screen until dawn, feeling something cold and methodical settle in his chest. She thought he was predictable, spineless. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Over the next 2 weeks, Caleb became two people. During the day, devoted husband and father, logistics coordinator, soccer dad who never missed Oliver's playdate pickups. At night, digital hunter, gathering evidence with methodical precision that would make a federal investigator proud. The cameras revealed everything, and it was worse than he'd imagined. Ian Halbrook, 6'2", military-bearing, expensive clothes that screamed government contractor money. He moved through Caleb's house like he owned it, drinking from Caleb's glasses, eating from Caleb's plates, sleeping in Caleb's bed. Wednesday evening, camera 3 caught them in the kitchen while Oliver was at daycare. "When are you going to tell him?" Ian asked, pulling Mara against the granite countertop Caleb had installed himself. "Soon? I've already talked to a lawyer about custody arrangements. Rebecca Walsh recommended someone ruthless." "And you think he'll just roll over?" Mara laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. "Caleb avoids confrontation like the plague. He'll be hurt, sure, but he'll want what's best for Oliver. I know exactly how to play this. I've been manipulating him for years." Ian kissed her neck aggressively. "What if he fights for the kid?" "With what? I'm the primary caregiver. I make all the school decisions, handle the medical appointments, do all the real parenting. Caleb just provides the paycheck and plays video games with him on weekends. And after the divorce? 50-50 custody at most for him. But I'm documenting his emotional distance and work obsession. My lawyer thinks we can get supervised visits only if we play it right." "How?" "Easy. I tell the court he's been displaying unstable behavior, mood swings, possible drinking problem. I've already started keeping a journal of his concerning incidents. Amazing how normal conversations can sound sinister when you write them down right." Ian's hands roamed over her body. "You're devious. I like that. You haven't seen anything yet. By the time I'm done, he'll be lucky to see Oliver once a month, and he'll be paying me for the privilege of losing his family." Camera 5 in Oliver's playroom captured the most unsettling footage. Lately, Oliver had been drawing pictures of a tall, shadowy figure he called Scary Friend. In every crayon scrawl, the figure stood beside his mother, sometimes holding her hand, sometimes looming over them both. Earlier drawings showed the figure far away, but over time he crept closer. Now he was in the house, in the bedroom, holding Oliver's mother while the boy huddled in the corner. Caleb met Dr. Talia Perez, Oliver's pediatrician and an old college friend, for coffee downtown. She flipped through the drawings laid out between them. "This points to serious anxiety around a threatening male presence," she said, voice low as she studied the pages. "Kids his age can't explain fear clearly, so it comes out like this. He's telling you someone near his mom makes him feel deeply unsafe." "What kind of unsafe?" Caleb hadn't touched his coffee in 20 minutes. "Hard to say without testing, but look at the patterns, how the figure grows larger and more central, how Oliver makes himself smaller. He sees this man as a growing threat, not just to him, but to the bond between him and his mother. Could this affect him long-term? Absolutely. Children who witness adult relationships they can't understand, especially secretive or threatening ones, often develop anxiety disorders, attachment issues, even PTSD. The fact that he's calling this person Scary Friend suggests he knows something is wrong but can't process what. That evening, while Mara graded papers downstairs, Caleb quietly hacked into her laptop using skills honed tracking supply chain cyber threats. Her browser history laid out the betrayal. Marriage counseling forums, divorce attorneys, articles like How to Prove a Father Unfit. In her files, a draft divorce petition made his stomach turn, page after page painting him as unstable, emotionally, distant, obsessed with work, twisted conversations, flat-out lies designed to ruin him. March 15th, Caleb screamed at Oliver for spilling juice, accused me of undermining him, then stormed out for 3 hours. Complete fiction. On March 15th, Caleb had helped Oliver build a blanket fort, and they'd eaten pizza while watching cartoons. Incident #7, April 2nd. Found Caleb drinking alcohol alone in the garage at 2 a.m., muttering about people who don't appreciate what they have. When confronted, he accused me of spying on him. His behavior has become increasingly erratic and concerning. April 2nd, he'd been in the garage organizing tools for exactly 20 minutes before coming inside and going straight to bed. But the real shock was in her email drafts. Messages to Ian discussing their exit strategy. I've been collecting financial records for weeks. He thinks I don't know about that little side hustle, Summit Supply Chain Solutions, but I do. It's pulling in solid money. That, plus the house equity, his 401k, it'll make a generous alimony package. We'll be more than fine once this wraps up. I'm thinking Costa Rica for the honeymoon? Ian hesitated. What about the kid? Isn't that going to complicate things? Oliver will adapt. Kids are tougher than people give them credit for. It might be good for him. He deserves a real man in his life, not someone who hides behind spreadsheets. You could teach him so much. How to be strong, confident, assertive. Things Caleb never could. I like the sound of that. What's the timeline? I file in 6 weeks. By Christmas, we'll be celebrating our new life together. Caleb will be paying for it, and we'll be living it. Caleb's hands shook as he read. They weren't just ending his marriage. They were planning to steal his son, his home, his future, and make him finance their happily ever after. The final surveillance breakthrough came when Caleb discovered Ian had used Mara's school email credentials to access Oliver's daycare portal, downloading the child's schedule, medical information, emergency contacts, even photos from school events. Nate helped trace the digital footprint during their lunch break. This guy's accessing private data through an unauthorized account, he said, reviewing the logs on his laptop. That's not just unethical, it's a felony if he's using it for personal gain or manipulation. Can we prove intent? Check the timestamps. He's pulling Oliver's info every Tuesday and Thursday, right before showing up at your house. He's using your son's daycare and medical schedule to plan the affair. That's not just creepy, it's a federal offense. Unauthorized access to a child's educational records crosses a serious legal line. What kind of penalties? Criminal charges, definitely. Loss of security clearance if he has one. Civil liability. This guy could be looking at prison time if we play this right. Caleb felt something dark and cold settle in his chest. They'd made a crucial mistake. Ian's military arrogance had led him to treat this like a mission where intelligence gathering was just another tool, but he'd crossed legal lines that would destroy him. Now it was time to turn the tables. Caleb told Mara he'd be in Detroit for 3 days, even showed her the fake itinerary Nate had helped him create, complete with flight confirmations, hotel reservations, and a detailed meeting schedule. His phone's GPS would show him checking into the airport hotel, attending meetings, living his predictable business traveler life. In reality, he parked his truck in Nate's garage and spent the day preparing. Zip ties, taser, portable camera equipment, backup recording devices. If Ian wanted to play soldier, Caleb would give him a war. Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. Ian's BMW pulled into the driveway like he belonged there. Caleb watched from the neighbor's hedge as the man strolled through the front door without even knocking, like he had his own key. Through the kitchen window, Mara greeting Ian with a passionate embrace that lasted 30 seconds. Oliver was nowhere to be seen, probably already asleep upstairs, completely unaware that a stranger was moving through his house like a predator. Caleb gave them 30 minutes to get comfortable, then used his garage remote to enter silently through the side door. He could hear them in the living room, soft music, clinking glasses, Mara's laugh pitched low and intimate. He moved through his own house like a ghost, avoiding the floorboards that creaked, staying in the shadows. Years of getting up early for work without waking the family had taught him every silent pathway. He found them in the living room, Ian's shirt already unbuttoned, Mara straddling his lap on the leather couch Caleb had bought for their first anniversary. Ian's hands were roaming over her body with the confidence of someone who'd done this many times before. "Evening, folks." Mara screamed, a sharp sound that cut through the soft jazz music. Ian shot to his feet with military reflexes, shoving her behind him and automatically reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "What the hell are you doing here?" Ian demanded, scanning the room for threats and escape routes. "Mara said you were traveling until Sunday." "Funny thing about travel plans," Caleb said, stepping into the light. Sometimes they change. Sometimes people lie about them to catch cheating wives and their boyfriends. Ian was bigger, clearly stronger, with the kind of disciplined muscle that came from military training. But Caleb had spent 2 weeks planning this exact moment, and surprise was worth more than size. "Look, man, this isn't what you think. Shut up." Caleb's voice cut through Ian's practiced excuse. "You've been in my house for 2 months, sleeping in my bed, eating my food, using my son's personal information for your sick little game, and now you're going to lie to my face about it?" "Caleb, please, we can talk about this," Mara started. "Not yet, sweetheart. I'll deal with you after I finish with your boyfriend. See, Ian here thinks he's some kind of tactical genius, but he made one crucial mistake. Ian's eyes narrowed. What mistake? You used unauthorized access to obtain private information about a minor. That's a federal crime, and I've got digital proof of every single download. Ian's military training kicked in. He moved fast, lunging for Caleb's phone to stop any recording. But Caleb was ready. The taser in his left hand connected with Ian's ribs before the bigger man could close the distance. Ian convulsed and crashed into the coffee table, sending wine glasses flying. Red wine splattered across the white carpet. That's for touching my wife, Caleb said, watching Ian writhe on the floor. Before Ian could recover, Caleb zip-tied his hands behind his back with the efficiency of someone who'd practiced the motion dozens of times. Ian was still twitching from the electrical shock, unable to coordinate his movements. Caleb, stop. Mara lunged forward, but he pointed the taser at her. Sit down and shut up. Your turn comes later. He dragged Ian toward the garage, the bigger man's boots scraping against the hardwood floors Mara had insisted on installing. Caleb, you can't do this! Mara followed them, her silk robe falling open. This is crazy. You're not this person. Actually, I can. He's trespassing. He's accessed private data illegally, and he just attempted to assault me. I'm making a citizen's arrest, which is perfectly legal in Illinois. In the garage, Caleb secured Ian to the heavy workbench with additional zip ties and set up a camera on a tripod. Professional lighting, multiple angles. This needed to be clear and admissible. Here's how this works, he said as Ian struggled against the restraints. You're going to tell me everything. Every detail of your relationship with my wife, every time you've been in my house, every piece of information you've stolen about my family. Go to hell! Ian's voice was hoarse, but defiant. Caleb held up the taser again. I've got all night, Ian. And unlike you, I actually have a legitimate reason to be here. This is my house, my family, my life you've been playing with. You're making a huge mistake. I'm a federal contractor with security clearance. When my company finds out you've assaulted me, when your company finds out you've been using school email systems to access private child data, your clearance will be permanently revoked. When they find out you've been committing adultery with a teacher who gave you those credentials, you'll be lucky to avoid prison. Ian's face went white. You can't prove any of that. Caleb pulled out a tablet and showed him timestamp logs. Every download, every access, every unauthorized entry into my son's private records, plus audio recordings of you discussing the schedule you stole to plan your visits. 20 minutes later, after carefully calibrated applications of pressure and psychology, no physical harm, just relentless presentation of evidence and consequences. Ian broke completely. She said you were weak, he gasped, sweat pouring down his face. Said you'd never fight for anything, that you'd just roll over and take whatever she decided to give you. Keep talking. We've been meeting here for 2 months. She gave me the garage code, the security system bypass, everything. I used her school login to check your kid's schedule so we'd know when it was safe. What else? She's planning to take you for everything. The house, the kid, alimony, child support. Her lawyer said with the right evidence about your emotional problems, she could get full custody and maximum financial support. What emotional problems? The ones she's been documenting. Fake incidents, twisted conversations, made-up examples of you being unstable around Oliver. She's got a whole journal full of lies designed to make you look like an unfit father. Caleb leaned closer, ensuring the camera caught every word. Say this part clearly for the record. Did you enter my home without permission while my child was present? Yes. Did you access my son's private information through unauthorized computer access? Yes. Did you sleep in my bed with my wife while planning to help her steal my child through false legal accusations? Ian's shoulders sagged in defeat. Yes. All of it. Everything. Did you discuss using your relationship with my wife to gain information about my finances and property for the purpose of maximizing her divorce settlement? Yes. She wanted to know about your consulting business, your retirement accounts, everything. Caleb turned off the camera and began untying Ian. You've got 60 seconds to get out of my house before I call the police and show them this confession. Ian stumbled toward his car, holding his ribs. This isn't over. You piece of... Actually, it is. Check your work email tomorrow. Check your security clearance status. Check your bank account when your company freezes your assets pending the federal investigation. As Ian's BMW disappeared down the street, Caleb uploaded the confession video to multiple cloud servers, then sent anonymous tips to Ian's security. company, the Department of Education's Privacy Office, and the FBI's Cybercrime Division. 3 separate federal agencies would be very interested in Ian's unauthorized access to educational records. Inside, Mara was pacing the kitchen, clutching her phone with shaking hands. "You can't prove anything beyond tonight," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "It's your word against mine about everything else." Caleb pulled out a tablet and showed her 2 weeks of surveillance footage. Her face went white as she watched herself planning his destruction in crystal-clear high definition. "Actually, it's your words, all of them, recorded in your own voice with timestamps and metadata." She watched herself discussing the fake journal, the custody strategy, the financial planning, her own voice describing him as weak, spineless, predictable. Her laughter when Ian suggested Oliver needed a real man as a father figure. "The lawyers will explain that Illinois is a one-party consent state for recordings," Caleb said. "Everything you've said in this house is admissible in court. Every lie you've planned, every manipulation you've discussed, every scheme you've cooked up to steal my son." Mara sank into a kitchen chair, the fight going out of her. "What do you want?" "I want my son safe from people who would use him as a weapon. I want the truth in court instead of your fabricated stories. And I want you to understand that underestimating me was the biggest mistake of your life." Monday morning, 7:45 a.m. Mara was teaching her first period advanced English class when Caleb walked into Washington High School, carrying a manila envelope and a grim expression. He'd dressed carefully for this moment. Dark suit, professional briefcase. The look of a man conducting serious business. The students and faculty needed to see this wasn't some emotional outburst. This was calculated, legal, and final. He found her classroom and knocked. Through the window, he could see 20 teenagers looking up expectantly from their copies of Macbeth. How fitting. "Mrs. Mercer? You have a visitor." Mara's face flushed deep red when she saw him. Her professional composure cracked instantly. "This isn't appropriate, Caleb. I'm working. You can't just—" "So am I." He handed her the envelope in front of her students and colleagues. "Divorce papers, custody petition, emergency restraining order. You're being formally served." The envelope was thick, professional, intimidating. Her hands shook as she took it. "Class dismissed," she whispered to her students. "Go to the library, study hall." But the damage was done. The hallway filled with whispers as Mara's professional reputation cracked in real time. Principal Davies appeared, drawn by the commotion and the cluster of confused teenagers. "What's happening here?" "Just delivering legal documents," Caleb said, his voice carrying clearly down the hallway. "Mrs. Mercer should probably review them promptly. They include some interesting video evidence of her extracurricular activities." That afternoon, Caleb's attorney, Jennifer Walsh, filed for emergency custody based on Mara's reckless endangerment of Oliver by bringing unauthorized individuals into the home and allowing them access to the child's private information. The evidence package was devastating. Surveillance footage, Ian's full confession, proof of the data breach, screenshots of Mara's fabricated divorce preparation, and Dr. Perez's professional assessment of Oliver's trauma indicators. Jennifer was a shark in an expensive suit, recommended by 3 colleagues who'd survived nasty divorces. "This is one of the strongest custody cases I've seen," she told Caleb in her downtown office. "Your wife made every possible mistake. The evidence is overwhelming." "What are we looking at for timeline?" "Emergency hearing Wednesday, full custody hearing within 30 days. With this evidence, I'd be shocked if she gets anything more than supervised visitation." Wednesday morning brought the first court hearing. Judge Patricia Coleman, a stern woman in her 50s known for her no-nonsense approach to family law, reviewed the preliminary evidence with obvious displeasure. The courtroom was packed. Mara sat at the defendant's table looking smaller than Caleb had ever seen her. "Mrs. Mercer," Judge Coleman said, "can you explain why a man with no legal relationship to your child was accessing his daycare records?" Mara's lawyer, David Brennan, looked flustered. He was young, inexperienced, probably all she could afford on short notice. "Your Honor, my client was unaware of any improper data access. The surveillance footage shows Mrs. Mercer providing this individual with detailed information about the child's schedule and activities. She facilitated the breach. Objection, Your Honor. The surveillance was conducted without my client's knowledge or consent." Overruled. Illinois law permits recording in one's own home with single-party consent. Mr. Mercer was protecting his child and property from unknown threats. Judge Coleman continued reading from the evidence file. "Mr. Brennan, does your client deny bringing unauthorized individuals into the marital home while the minor child was present?" Brennan whispered frantically with Mara, reviewing the surveillance footage on his laptop. No denial, Your Honor. But the circumstances are more complex than... Does she deny that these individuals had access to the child's private information? The circumstances are more complex than they appear, Your Honor. My client believed... Mr. Brennan, I need yes or no answers. Did your client knowingly allow unauthorized access to this child's private data? Long pause. Whispered consultation. Yes, Your Honor, but without malicious intent. Intent doesn't matter when child welfare is at stake. Judge Coleman's voice hardened. I'm granting temporary full custody to Mr. Mercer pending a complete investigation. Mara's gasp echoed through the courtroom. Furthermore, Mrs. Mercer will have supervised visitation only 2 hours per week, and I'm ordering immediate psychological evaluation for all parties. Outside the courthouse, Mara grabbed Caleb's arm, her professional composure completely shattered. You can't take Oliver from me. I'm his mother. I gave birth to him. You should have thought about that before you let your boyfriend steal his personal information and use it to plan your affair. It wasn't like that. Ian never meant any harm. We were just... Ian's been fired from his security job and is under federal criminal investigation. His clearance is permanently revoked. Every client contract he had access to is being reviewed for potential breaches. The FBI is involved now. Mara's face crumpled. You destroyed his career, his whole life. He destroyed his own career when he used my son's data to plan his affair with my wife. Actions have consequences, Mara. You taught me that. We can fix this, Caleb. We had something real once. Before all this started, we were happy. We can rebuild... No, Mara, we're done. You made your choice when you decided I was too weak to fight back. Turns out you were wrong about that, too. The next morning, the local newspaper ran the story. Teacher suspended after custody battle reveals data breach. By noon, it was trending on local social media. By evening, parents were calling for Mara's permanent removal from the school district. The school board scheduled an emergency meeting. The teachers' union declined to provide representation after reviewing the evidence. Mara's teaching career was effectively over. 2 months later, the final divorce hearing concluded with Judge Coleman's scathing assessment of Mara's conduct. The courtroom was packed again. This had become the most talked-about custody case in the county. Mrs. Mercer, Judge Coleman said, your actions endangered your child's welfare, violated his privacy, and demonstrated profound lack of judgment. Your husband's evidence shows systematic deception and manipulation designed to destroy a father's relationship with his child. Mara's new lawyer, Brennan, had withdrawn after the state bar opened an investigation into his pre-trial strategy, made a last desperate attempt. Susan Martinez was better than Brennan, but had been handed an impossible case. Your Honor, my client acknowledges serious mistakes, but maintains her fundamental right to parent her child. She's completed the required therapy and parenting classes. A right that must be balanced against the child's best interests. Mrs. Mercer's psychological evaluation reveals narcissistic personality traits and an inability to prioritize her son's needs over her personal desires. Dr. Perez had been thorough in her assessment. The subject shows little genuine remorse for her actions and continues to minimize the impact on the child. She views the child primarily as a tool for financial security rather than an individual with his own needs. The custody decision was final. Caleb received primary physical and legal custody. Mara was granted supervised visits twice per week for 6 months, with potential for expanded access pending successful completion of additional parenting classes and continued therapy. The court finds that Mrs. Mercer's judgment is fundamentally compromised, Judge Coleman declared. She exposed her child to criminal behavior, violated his privacy, and attempted to weaponize false allegations for personal gain. Such actions are incompatible with responsible parenting. The financial settlement reflected that. The marital home would be sold, with Caleb awarded 70% to ensure stable housing for Oliver. Mara's pension was split evenly, but most of her savings had already gone to legal fees. As for Summit Supply Chain Solutions, the side business she tried to conceal, it remained entirely Caleb's, and turned out to be worth far more than she realized. Her career unraveled almost immediately. The school board voted unanimously to fire her. The state revoked her teaching license pending ethics remediation and a psychological evaluation. Parent groups shared clips from the surveillance footage, Ian entering the house while Oliver slept upstairs, and the story spread fast across local feeds and parenting forums. Ian disappeared. His apartment was empty, lease broken, phone dead. When he skipped his court date for federal data theft charges, a bench warrant was issued. The FBI flagged him in their cybercrime database, and his security clearance was permanently revoked. Guys like him always run when the consequences get real, Jennifer explained. but he'll never work in security again. One background check and his criminal record will end any hope of legitimate employment. The final confrontation came on the courthouse steps after the sentencing. Mara approached Caleb one last time as he loaded Oliver's car seat into his truck. She looked older, smaller, defeated. "I know you hate me," she said, "but Oliver deserves to know his mother. He needs both parents. Oliver will know his mother. The supervised visits will continue as long as you comply with the court's requirements. 2 hours a week isn't enough. I carried him for 9 months. I gave birth to him. I loved him before you even held him." Caleb studied her face, seeing the manipulation attempt even now. "You loved the idea of him, but when it came time to choose between his well-being and your desires, you chose yourself. Every single time. That's not fair." "Fair?" Caleb's voice carried 2 months of suppressed rage. "Was it fair to expose our son to a strange man who accessed his private information? Was it fair to plan to steal him from me with fabricated accusations? Was it fair to let Oliver see you with another man and call him the scary friend? Was it fair to plan to use my own money to finance your new life with your boyfriend?" Mara's composure finally shattered completely. "I made mistakes. People make mistakes. That doesn't mean I don't love my son." "Love isn't enough anymore, Mara. Trust is broken. Security is gone. Oliver's stability matters more than your feelings." She tried once more, grabbing his arm. "What if I ended it with Ian permanently? What if I proved I could change? What if I went to therapy for real this time? Ian's already gone, and you proved who you really are when you thought no one was watching. You proved it with your own voice, in your own words, planning to destroy your son's relationship with his father. The surveillance was illegal. You had no right. I had every right to protect my child in my own home, and everything you said was admissible because it was true." Mara stepped back, her eyes hard. "This isn't over. Oliver will figure out what kind of man you really are. He'll see that you destroyed his family. Oliver already knows what kind of man I am. I'm the one who protected him from people who would use him as a weapon. I'm the one who put his safety above everything else. And someday, when he's old enough to understand, he'll know exactly why his mother only gets supervised visits." 6 months later, Caleb and Oliver stood at the edge of Lincoln Park, watching ducks on the pond. Oliver had grown quieter since the custody change, but his drawings no longer featured scary friends. Dr. Perez said the therapy was working. He was beginning to process the trauma and understand that the instability wasn't his fault. "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy live with us anymore?" Caleb knelt beside his son, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that change everything. Mommy made some choices that weren't safe for our family. Will she come back? She'll visit you regularly, but our home is just you and me now. Is that okay?" Oliver nodded solemnly, then brightened. "Can we feed the ducks?" "Absolutely." Oliver ran ahead, laughing at the ducks, finally free from scary friends and adult games he never should have witnessed. His drawings now showed happy families, bright suns, and houses with strong foundations.